So we're up to a good year. We're up to the 84-85 Edmonton Oilers. And it's an interesting bunch, so go ahead and zoom in here. So I've checked off, I put slashes next to the ones that are new players. Billy Carroll, who was a player for the New York Islanders during their dynasty, came over and played for the Edmonton Oilers in 84-85. Proved to be a valuable addition. They added some depth. Mike Krushelnyski joined the team. 88 points for Krushelnyski that first year. Larry Melnick came in on the blue line. Mark Napier came over from Montreal. And it was interesting in that Napier was a key guy for the Montreal Canadiens. Comes over, scored, I believe it was 35 points in 33 games for Edmonton, but in the playoffs he only scored 10 points. He was a third line guy. And when you've got a guy like Mark Napier in your third line, you've got a ton of depth. They added Esa Tikkanen came over that year. He was added to the roster, and that just makes them stronger. Edmonton got stronger between the 84 Stanley Cup and 85, and it really shows when you look at the playoff run. They swept the Kings, then they swept the Jets, then they beat Chicago in 6, and then they beat Philly in the final in 5, and that was the first of 2 meetings they had with Philadelphia in the final. This one was anticlimactic. It really wasn't close. When I look at, I'm going to go ahead and grab the scores here. The scores of those series, when they played against the Kings, they won in overtime 3-2, they won 4-2, and then they won in overtime 4-3. So, all right, they kept it close. Second round, they beat Winnipeg 4-2, 5-2, 5-4, and 8-3. So Winnipeg in Game 4 throws in the towel. When Edmonton played Chicago, Edmonton won 11-2, 7-3, lost 5-2, lost 8-6, won 10-5, and then won the last game 8-2. I didn't really enjoy the Oilers, but I got to say it was fun hockey to watch. And then in the Stanley Cup Finals, they lost Game 1 to Philly 4-1. And then they won Game 2 3-1. Then they won 4-3, 5-3, and 8-3. And of course, those last 3 games were in Edmonton. As I said in last night's video, in 84 and 85, the Stanley Cup Final went a 2-3-2 system, was never used again. Because all Edmonton had to do was get a split. So they got the split, and that's really all that mattered. That's all she wrote. They only needed 18 games. They only lost 3 in the entire playoffs. They only needed 18 games. So it was an interesting run, to say the least. Okay, so that's got some glare from the window on it. Let's just turn this around a little bit. Now, the scoring thing isn't as interesting with the Oilers, except, Krushelnyski steps in with 88 points. Messier had 54, but he only played 55 games. In the playoffs, Messier had 25 points, was right behind Anderson's 26, Curry's 31, Coffey's 37, and Gretzky 47 points in 18 playoff games. So, when during the playoffs now, it's like, all right, the defense has been ratcheted up. Not in the 80s, it wasn't. And Charlie Huddy had 20 points in 18 games. Charlie Huddy had 51 points in the regular season that year. And Charlie Huddy was a defensive defenseman. He wasn't really an offensive dynamo. So it just shows just how crazy the 80s were. There's an interesting article in here. Coffey goes for broke. And it says right here, Paul Coffey, the NHL's best defenseman. You see that? They call him a defenseman. Those are fighting words. Acceptance has not come easily to Paul Coffey. The numbers have consistently spoken extraordinarily well on his behalf, but not all hockey observers from whom Coffey has elicited an uncommon ambivalence have done the same. The strangest example occurred following the 83-84 season, when the swift-skating Edmonton Oiler was one of 2 players nominated for the Norris Trophy, which is awarded annually to the NHL's best defenseman. He didn't win, losing to Washington's Rod Langway, nor did he make the first All-Star team, despite scoring 40 goals, 86 assists for 126 points. Only one other player, Wayne Gretzky, scored more points than him that year. Only one other defenseman, Bobby Orr, has ever scored more points in a single season. Still, Paul Coffey didn't even make the first All-Star team. Langway and Boston's Ray Bourque did. Damn rights Ray Bourque did. Frickin'. I don't care how many points Coffey scored. He was not Ray Bourque. Ugh. Coffey was placed on the second team, which is where he belonged. That year was the third straight in a unique Coffey break, NHL style. It marked the third consecutive season the Toronto native had led league defensemen in scoring, and the third year in a row the Norris Trophy was not awarded to the league's top scoring rearguard. Which is odd, isn't it? We wouldn't think anything of that as much now, I don't think. Do we? Is that why Carlson? No. Comparing Erik Karlsson, who's a defenseman, to Paul Coffey, who was a rover, that marked a significant departure in voting behavior by the Professional Hockey Writers Association over the previous 13 seasons, starting with legendary Bobby Orr in 1969. The top point-producing blue liner and Norris winner were one and the same. Chicago Blackhawks' Doug Wilson and Langway, who earned the honors 2 years in a row, combined to end the streak. Or is it the Coffey brand of defense, strong on offense and weak on defense, that ended the streak? I say supposedly weak on defense. No, he was weak on defense. Whatever the reason, it was no more last year. It was no more last year when Coffey received what many felt was past due. He won the Norris Trophy and was named the first All-Star team for the first time after a regular season of remarkable accomplishments that almost paled in comparison to playoff achievements. Coffey in his fifth year scored 37 goals and 84 points to place fifth in league scoring and added a league record 37 points during the Oilers Stanley Cup drive past the Kings, Jets, Blackhawks, and Flyers. Only Gretzky's excellence kept Coffey from winning the Conn Smythe Trophy as the player's most valuable player. Clearly, the 24-year-old has arrived. Nobody compares with him in skill and overall skill level anywhere in the league, said Oilers Director of Player Personnel and Chief Scout Barry Fraser, who picked Coffey 6th overall in the 1980 entry draft. So they talk a lot about how great he is, and how awesome he is, and how amazing he is, and how awesomely amazing he is. But here we are. High-flying Oilers aim to establish a dynasty. Edmonton Oilers' appetite for grandeur is hardly satiated. Sure, the Oilers have taken a couple of bites from the famous carrot adorning their first Stanley Cup rings, but they think the main course is still to come. Championships in 84 and 85 were merely hors d'oeuvres. North America's best hockey team wants to remain that for many years to come. The Oilers are reaching for a plateau previously occupied by the Canadiens and New York Islanders. We haven't won 4 or 5 in a row, but I think we have the start of a dynasty, said Paul Coffey moments after the Oilers dismissed the Flyers in last year's Stanley Cup final. If we continue to be dedicated with the players and organization we have, there's no reason we can't be a dynasty. No reason at all with co-coaches, Glenn Sather and John Muckler, Wayne Gretzky, Yari Curry, Mark Messier, Glenn Anderson, Paul Coffey, Charlie Huddy, Kevin Lowe, Grant Fuhr, and the rest. There's a little danger of smugness settling in amongst the group. Not with one of its number aiming for a 100-goal season, Gretzky, and another for 50, Coffey. Gretzky holds the single-season record of 92. He'd like to hit the century mark. He never got close again. Bobby Orr has the defenseman's record of 46. Coffey would like to someday improve that mark by 4. I'm pretty sure Coffey never hit 50 goals. They are the most dominant players on a team that dominates its opposition like few others before them. Gretzky is a record book unto himself. Last season he added his unprecedented 6th straight Hart Trophy, 5th consecutive scoring championship, and improved upon his own record for most assists in a single season with 135. 135 assists. That's assists. In a season. Curry had 135 points. That's how good the Oilers were. That's how much everybody praised him in 85. And it's easy 30 years on for people to say, they were just offense. They were just, they'd get killed in today's game. Much like people say about the Islanders. I really don't think so. There's a lot of Hall of Famers on this roster. Of course, tomorrow we talk about how they failed. This Edmonton dynasty of wonder and fantastic amazement would be dethroned by a sea of red. Because the one team they didn't have to go through when they got that 85 Cup was the team that choked in the first round that year, Calgary. Calgary learned from that choke job in the first round. They weren't going to be denied again. And of course, a young defenseman named Steve Smith played a role in it. and we'll get into that tomorrow. But for now, that's your Oilers. It's 85. Everything's wonderful for the guys wearing a jersey similar to this, but different colors. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through, and I'll talk to you again later.